Very welcome to our third webinar of the Cultivate webinar series from Work Package 6. We're going to be talking about topics around equality today, and I'm very happy to see you all. So let's get started. We're going to talk about forms of inequalities in food sharing and saving. So very much about where do you encounter inequalities, what do you do in your communities to foster equality in them. And so this is what we're going to talk about today with Nesenuti, but then also we are going to have some time for. I just wanted to bring an icebreaker for today because also I am not, we are not experts on the topic. I think we are all learning, and therefore I wanted to bring something along which could be a resource for some of you. Maybe you want to revisit it in some time. It's taken from John Maeder's Design in Tech report, and it's illustrations about addressing imbalances. So this picture, also as Jasmine mentioned in one of our talks before, is very related to food since it's about an apple tree. And it depicts inequality in a way. So the tree is bent to one side, the apples are growing on one side, and one person receives all the apples. So it's an unequal access to opportunities in this sense. Then when talking about equality, so when I named this webinar equality, or when we decided on naming it equality, it was also something, so the word came to our mind, but then we didn't really reflect on it. And afterwards I did some digging. And so therefore, this is also interesting maybe because equality in the end means evenly distributed tools and assistance. So both of the people have these tools to technically reach the tree and the apples, but in the end the tree is bent. So there's still an inequality in this way. And then this picture is about equity. So, and equity is actually giving people different tools, custom tools that identify and address the inequalities that are in the system. So really having an open view on the whole system and looking at how opportunities, are distributed, and then reacting to that. That would be equity. And then justice in the end would be to fix the system. So in this picture, to adjust the tree so both can, with the tools they are given, reach the same opportunities or apples in this picture. So I found it really nice just as a food for thought for today's webinar's topic. But with that, I would like to pass it on to our speaker today, to Nesenuti. Either Anna or Vendula, you wanted to speak, and I'm going to stop sharing and pass it over to you.
Our organization, CZECH, I will shortly introduce you our organization. We are working with very different topics as climate change, as human rights, in terms of women's rights and migrant rights, and also we make participatory processes in our local municipality in Brno, and other very different topics which emerge like every time, like because we are activist organization, and this is important to us to react on some injustice and inequalities. So we address it in different ways. Our organization already worked for 25 years, and me and Wendy, we are actually working in a team which work with migrants and with newcomers, with refugees, with all people from all countries around the world who came to Brno and seek here for the home. So our main aim is to help them feel like at home, and feel them more equal, and feel them more, bring them more agency to solve their problems and to speak about their situations. And actually how we get to some food activities, it was because all of us will have to eat, some of us will have to cook, for example me, and because we are doing like more community events with this migrant community. So food seems to be the best way how to bring people to one table and to make this one first contact and to try to connect to each other and to connect to each other as a personality, as a people who can maybe bring some other cultures to this table. So the food was more as a tool for us than as a name as it. But yeah, I will show you now some pictures from our event. And we start actually with doing different food events as, for example, Kulinarna. This is our usual event when we bring people together and some people prepare the menu and recipes, and then we cook it together and eat it together. So we don't leave it on one person who cook for everyone. We try to be equal also in this labor separation of the labor, how we participate on it. So participatory methods are very important in our work. And our current activities related to the food is this Kulinarna, which I already mentioned. And this event of Kulinarna are always free to enter. It's free of charge. We try to fund it with donation. So we want it to be a low barrier for everybody to participate on it. Also, it's usually like it's always vegan. So we try to bring more people with different diets and be there and cook also for those wider community of people who actually this plant food can eat everyone, even people who have some religious views and so on. So this is how we try to lower barriers for participating on this event. Our team from CZECH, now they're running campaign for diversity in food canteens, in school canteens, because this is a really big issue in Czech Republic. Some research shows now that every fourth child can't eat in a school canteen because it's usually meat and it's usually cooked with gluten, for example, and other stuff. And a lot of people have diets, so they have no option to eat in school canteen. And our campaign is trying to bring more vegetables and plants in the canteen menu. So it is not just about the diets and about the access for people who have different diets to the canteen, but also about climate justice and about save our planets when we will eat much less meat and much more plants. And other part of our events which are connected to food is community events, which are not based on cooking together, but every time we have community events when we meet with our community from migrants and newcomers, all of us can bring some food and people really can have a feeling of participation when they can bring something with them, and it makes them more comfortable to be together and make them feel that they already also participating somehow in these community gatherings. So this have also some symbolic meaning for us. Also, we try through our activities to raise awareness about different cultures and people who are coming to Czech Republic, about their rights and equality and solidarity with them. So this is how we use food in bringing also awareness to other topics, because usually to these Kulinarna events we ask to come also locals. So it based on meeting migrants or refugees with locals and bring them together to some tables and to talk about things and so on, because in Czech Republic there are not so much immigrants or people who come from other countries, and after war started in Ukraine there are a lot of them here now, and Czech people are not used to communicate with people from other countries so much because it's quite homogenic society. So yeah, this is one of the things we try to change. And this is picture from actually from Kulinarna event and community events. This is cooking all together. And yeah, and what is also important to mention that that we personally, me and Wendy and our organization and other people from our organization are connected to other food initiatives in Brno, because Brno is not so big place, and usually people who try to change something and who are in social movements know each other and try to connect to each other, which is really great. So one of the projects about which I want to tell you is Triocasti. It means three tails, and this is an autonomous cooperative, which I was a founder, and then I tried to work in the COMMUNI, but I'm connected to it very much. And this is a place when we start running before 10 years, and this is complete vegan place. We run it as a restaurant for a few years, but after Corona, it's lockdown, it was very hard to keep running it, but now it's more run by the community, but by the volunteers, and it's not so much commercial. It's more about the meeting place for different organization initiatives, and also groups who are like engaged in some food initiatives. So this is a good place for networking. And there are also cooking, of course. There are sometimes some dinners a few times per week. We have a vegan cafe and cake shop. We publish also a cookbook. I will show you. These are our sandwiches. All of stuff is also vegan. This is a project of community fridge and shared fridge and shared like food for long, that you can consume for a long period of time. So this is a new project which run in like half a year maybe, and people can bring their leftovers and other people can take it. We also, in the place, we also offer a place for community agriculture, supported agriculture. So there is usually every week they bring their vegetables, and people pay money for the season and then they take it every week. So this is our cookbook, which is also vegan, and which we published 2 or 3 years ago, I think. So, and in the cookbook, actually, there are not just the recipes, but some text about food sovereignty and about food equality, about different examples, how we can like build more solidarity and more strong communities when we start our activities with sharing food and cooking together and eating together, because food is really like a strong tool of bringing people together. So this is one of the projects which I want to talk about. Also during pandemic, it was a very big wave of solidarity, and we preparing food every day for the social center, and it was for free. So this can also bring some overcome some inequalities in access to food, especially in lockdown, where people like homeless people and people in bad social situation even worse, access to food. So we try to somehow help them. Also, our organization is linked to Food Not Bombs, which are cooking every Saturday in our office, because we have a kitchen for them here, and then share food with people in need. And it's also somehow bring, this like not overcoming maybe, but we are trying to feed people in need and in the bad social situation, and somehow bring them access to food, because they have no. And and also some people in our very close network are connected to community stores, which are organized by community, and mainly there are organic and local food. So it also brings access for more cheaper food than in stores, in organic stores, which people can just offer, and then can also participate in running these stores, actually, because it's also based on volunteer base. So those are also projects which are running in Brno and on which we are participating somehow. And maybe some few words about food system in Czech Republic, which is very specific, and it's hard to change it because we have no policies which can help people to have access to good and quality food. This is a result maybe of our totalitarian former regime, which was trying to be equal and have a lot of food for everybody, but the food was not actually quality. It was not quality food, and people used not to pay a lot of money for the food. So this trend keep going now. So people try to save money to buy as cheaper food as possible. And it's also hard then for local farmer, for example, to conquer these big supermarkets and so on. Also, the inflation in last year went really high. So people now, after some research, a lot of people have no access to quality food and to good food, and they try to save even more money and keep buying this very unquality food with low prices, which are not sustainable, which are not organic, which are usually even brought from a very long distance here, but paradoxically it's more cheaper than local food. So this is the situation in which we are working. And and as I mentioned, these public food facilities and school canteens are not thinking about different diets and specifics and access for really equal access for all people to these food facilities. They keep cooking the recipes which were trend in 90s and 80s, and they don't want to change it. So this is some political and social situation in which we are working, and sometimes there is a lot of challenges how to overcome this. Wendy, you can continue, or you can add something if you feel that I forget to mention something important.
Yeah, I will continue with the activities that we are running in our organization. I might add something in the meantime, but I think you gave a very good overview. So as Anya was mentioning, in our team, we're working mostly with migrant communities. And for us, that means refugees, people who came for various reasons, with or without papers, just anyone who happened not to be born in Czech Republic and ended up in Czech Republic in Brno and want to live there. When talking about equality, equity, these are some of the groups that are often marginalized or vulnerable because of them coming from different places, not knowing the realities, not knowing the rules, not knowing the language. And in Czech Republic, still, if you live in the biggest cities or towns, you might get by pretty well with English, but it's not always the case. And if you end up if it's not the capital where you live, then you will really struggle without knowing the local language. So our activities actually encompass wide range of themes. It's not just the cooking together and the food sharing activities, but we are trying to create a whole variety, and that's actually one of the main points that I will be talking about in a minute. We use food as a tool or as an opener, because exactly as Anya was mentioning, is one of the things that we have in common, and it brings it's also a great opportunity for someone to feel part of the initiative or of the activity when they can bring something on the table, and that's already somehow that is already facilitating a better connection or communication, and we use that to bring people and then to start a long-term cooperation. What we see as a very important thing in this is that very often migrants or refugees are in the public space, they're reduced to the one identity: migrant or a refugee from Syria, or someone from Ukraine, someone from wherever. And for us, it is important to break this habit and show that people have different identities, different complex situations they live in. And that's also what we try to do in all of our activities. We're like, okay, migrant or refugee is maybe one of the identities, but it's definitely not the entirety of the person. So yeah, and also when we do the cooking events, when we do kulinarna, where the chefs, they have more like they have a central role, but everybody else is cooking as well. They are the orchestrators, let's say, but everybody else is participating, and we are also always trying to find a balance between this exoticizing, or I don't know what's the word, but between like putting these people as, okay, now they are the cooks of the exotic food or something, but again, bringing it back to these are people with complex identities, complex people. We also, as I was saying, we also then like try to develop the partnership further. So we do different workshops. We organize workshops on community building or on engagement in our active participation and engagement. And we are always actively inviting and encouraging everyone who takes part in our events to see, hey, is this something that you might also be interested in? Or is there something else we would like to develop together with us? So very often we see ourselves as someone who provides the tools, or somehow the tools or the knowledge, transfer our knowledge that we've gained, but then also respecting the fact that others also have some knowledge that they bring, and we try to work together on the topics and activities. So as for the main principles of our work, one of the crucial one is that we want our events and activities to be low barrier. That means, as Anya was mentioning, the events are either free of charge, or people can give some voluntary contribution or donation, but money should never be an obstacle for someone who wants to take a part in what we do. The fact that our food is always vegan also is very helpful. Besides all the environmental and ethical reasons, it's also very helpful that people don't have to think about, is it okay with my dietary restrictions or with my religious restrictions? Of course, there is still soya and nuts allergy, but we're always trying to also have different options for people with these restrictions, but it helps a lot. When you make something vegan, this is very helpful in this point of view. Also, yeah, it's easy for people to bring something small. They don't have to, when we do something like a shared brunch or a picnic, people don't have to invest a lot. They can bring a simple salad, a cake, or whatever, something very, very simple, not spend a lot of money on it. And they can bring that to the table and already be an active participant. We also, when we do our events, I think right now it would be hard to say whether we have like some like more man or female or male, female or non-binary people. I would say it's always it's changing a lot every time, but when we're thinking about activities, we're thinking about people who are also taking care of their families, about child carers, and we try to always make sure that the fact that someone is caring for a child is not going to be an obstacle or is not going to prevent them from participating. Practically, that may mean that we have someone who is going to take care of the baby at the place, or we do the event in a way that you can participate a while, then take care of the kid, and then come back. I appreciate it very much currently with my 1-year-old. I have already participated in several events, and it's very, very helpful also for me. The other very super important thing for us is that we're not doing like massive events. Anya, can you go back, please? We're still on that. Yes, thank you. We're more trying to build individual and lasting connections. What that allows us is to build a better relationship, build trust in the relationship, and that then also helps us when we seek feedback from our participants. Our participants of our events sometimes then become occasional volunteers. Some of them then they become more like integral part of the team. Sometimes this takes a few months. Sometimes someone stays for a year or two, then they leave. But building this helps us get a better idea of all the other identities and all the other barriers that they are facing. When we are able to talk about them joining other activities, maybe to help them learn Czech, or maybe to help them connect with locals on other levels, and talk more about what are the barriers that they are facing and what are the tools that they might need to overcome them, or any other tools that would encourage participation. And then to the third point, the equal partnership and active participation, that those are also like the very basic grounding rules, I would say, or ground rules of our organization, entire organization. We work on, we have a non-hierarchical structure, and we're always encouraging equal partnerships in everything what we do. So on an example of the Kulinárna, the cooking events, everybody who comes there is at the same level. So it's not someone like being lower or above or beyond some or below someone. We try to overcome these with different, could be also like little activities during the events, or just like being very open also about it, that this is important for us. In some of our other programs, for example, in the buddy system, where we pair volunteers with migrants living in Brno, we also put a lot of emphasis on like, this is not a teacher-student, or this is not a helper and someone being helped relationship, but it's an equal partnership where both of you can help each other, both of you can learn from each other, both of you bring something to the table that is beneficial for everyone. And yeah, I think being very open and very vocal about this is also sort of like bringing the attention to it. Encouraging the active participation of people, looking for the ways how they can feel comfortable contributing. That also, and putting there on this like equal level also helps not only to to like break stereotypes a little bit, but it also helps people to have this like, let's say sometimes small personal victory of, yes, I did this, I can contribute no matter what like my situation here is, I can bring something to the table, I can be an active agent, I have the agency. And that also helps in motivating themselves or like to take bigger steps, do more things in the not only in the public space. Sometimes it starts in the private space, but that's also very important. In all our events, we're always trying to create a safe space. That means that we try to have like very open communication and conversation. It ties back to the individual relationships. We try to always be there for the people that take part in the events, that take part in our programs. We want them to know that whatever the other questions or whatever other needs they might have, they may come to us. And although we may not always be able to change something or do something about the situation, we can either refer them to someone else who could do that, or we can discuss like what is it that needs to be done and what are the possible steps. I have in mind one of our participants / volunteers / chef. One is woman from Mexico who started as a participant in the buddy program because she wanted to work on her Czech. Then within the years, Estela started working with us more and more. She helped at some of the events. Once she came with the question of like, how do I would like to like bring more Mexican culture to Brno. How do I go about starting an NGO, or what would be a good way to start? Or so we talked about that. We helped them a little bit with the steps necessary to create an NGO. Then she actually organized one November. She organized Dia de Muertos that we did like a community event for the Day of the Dead. Is it in English? Dia de Muertos. Then she took part in the Culinarna. Back then she was a part of a cook duo with another Mexican friend, because she felt like she didn't feel comfortable being like the only chef. So she also invited another Mexican friend to join, which was amazing, because this other guy then also prepared food for some other events we did. And so building these relationships, it is slow. It is sometimes very tedious work. But we choose this because we think that it may bring more effect, or more like don't want to say value, but like it can bring better impact on the personal life.
And Anja, this was great and so much information. And I actually now maybe it's the time to open up the space a bit, and maybe some of you have brought some questions. Also looking at the people from the consortium who joined today, who will be leaving us afterwards. If you have any questions to Anja and Wendy at this point, please go ahead.
Thank you so very much for the very inspiring presentation. I really love the way that you explained how you really actively promote equality in all different ways, through your actions and your organization and the projects and the activities that you provide. So that was beautiful to hear about. I was wondering, it made me think about this Plan Einstein project, which we have in Utrecht, where we also work together with an organization called Common Ground too. So I'll share the link if you like to know. I think there are quite some similarities in things that you do. They really have also a garden, community garden, where they connect. But what's really important in the Plan Einstein approach is that it's inclusive, and that we collaborate with newcomers, with asylum seekers, people really still living in the asylum seeking shelter, and also neighborhood members, so people from the society can join. But I was very curious to know a bit more about the ratio of, like, is it maybe 50-50 of people from Brno itself joining, or is it really, do you also have events where there are only newcomers there? Like, what's a bit of the turnout when you try to create these inclusive activities?
I think it has been changing. In the beginning, we had, because we are in the beginning when we were actively aiming at getting as many also locals as possible, we did so much, like a lot of work getting the locals there, the Czech-born locals. So it was like more Czech-born and fewer foreign-born participants. With the time, we started also doing more of these brunches and picnics and other events where we didn't pay that much attention on getting the Czech-born locals there. And so I think, Anya, now like in the latest events, it's either half or more of the foreign-born. Is that right? So it's
yeah. Like now, the last events, we have more participants from different countries, but also these our food events are connected to our other activities, as Wendy already mentioned, this buddy program, which is pairing local and newcomer and supporting them in their activities and their learning, for example, and also other events like for example, city camp for children. So we are connected to the families. And then we have also Czech volunteers in these particular activities, and we want also to make community and stay connected with them. So when their activities are in like sometimes they have like lower activities and sometimes higher. So when the activity of these local volunteers are higher, then also participate in our food events, and the participation is more. And it really depends of how people are staying with us and leaving us and new people coming. So it's really changeable a lot. Yeah.
That also depends on the group. Sometimes we have so many students. So we have like a huge new group of students, which is amazing. And then the school year ends and all of them disappear. So it's a lot of starting over and over and over. Few people stay for a longer time, but there is a lot of starting over, and it's changing almost like every year.
Yeah, maybe I can also add, this is specific of working with Ukrainian community, because now we're working with Ukrainian teenagers, and this is a very specific group of people because they really like to be connected to each other, and they really like have strong connection, this group of these Ukrainians, but they're not so much connected to locals, and we really try to make it more connected, but still it have some reserves. So we are working on it, and I hope that next year we will run this buddy program again, start again another like wave of volunteers, bringing up local volunteers and newcomers, and we maybe gain some new fresh volunteers to our activities, so they will participate, I hope.
If somehow gender topics come into your cooking classes, or how do they connect to the work you do with migrant people?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank you for this question. It's really good question. Maybe as you see, I'm now in our gender in the office of our gender team in our organization. So this topic is really very close to our work, and one of the team in our organization doing this gender education, and they make workshops on this and so on. So this is one of the things which we are thinking a lot about. But actually, I would say, maybe Wendy, you can add something. What do you think about it? But I would say that this is a very natural in our event. Participate a lot of male and female and non-binary people, and this is usually a very natural way that everybody participating and cooking, and a lot of, for example, male participants from other countries preparing the menu and cooking, and as we try to bring awareness about this, but really in our Kulinarna events, it's so normal and yeah, natural, so we don't need to focus on it so much.
Actually, I would say that one thing I observed is that it happened to me a few times when we were planning the Kulinarna. The women who are very used to cooking at home, like they don't have any problem with cooking. But when it comes to you're going to be sort of the center of the attention, you're going to be like the main person there, like giving tasks and like orchestrating the event. It happened to me several times that I saw that the women like a little bit scared, I would say, of like, and the result once was that Estela brought a male friend, right? She was like, I know how to cook all this, I know, but I don't feel so comfortable, so I want to have this man next to me. So of course we didn't tell her, no, you have to be like on your own. We started talking to both of them, but I feel like once she tried it with him, she already gained more confidence. So the next event she did, she was already like, okay, I'm gonna prepare this presentation and then my friend will prepare food for it or whatever. But she was already more comfortable in being in the center of attention for part of the event. And this is like, I believe that it, or I could see that it helped her step by step gaining more confidence. And this is what I saw, what I observed with a few other women as well. It not generally with all women. We also had female cooks who were like, yeah, ready to be the star of the night. But I observed that women have more concerns when it comes to this than the men that we had in the program, definitely.
Thank you a lot, Wendy and Anna. It was really nice to hear about. I have so many questions. I'm so curious to understand more. So I will try to have one question. I was curious when you were talking, like first, the size of your organization, because I don't have this very clear, like how many people are actually working, and then what is the network of volunteers, like very synthetic. And then on top of that, when you more focus on the culinary like events, do you have your own space and a kitchen and a place to eat together? Or you go a bit like around places in the city and occupying different spaces? Plus also, how do you get the food? And like, because you want to make it very accessible. And I really like this, but like financially wise, I was just wondering if you have like partnerships, and I don't know. Yeah, that's a very big, broad question, but I try my best.
I'll try to start quickly. In our organization, the total is, I think we're around 30 people, more or less, but not everybody fulls work time. Actually, the more people work part-time, so it's not 30, 40 hours a week, but when we all get together, it's more or less 30 people, and our team is usually around 4 to 6 paid employees, I would say. None of the people have full-time, so we all vary between 10 to 30 hours a week. And volunteers, currently, I remember times when I started and we had like 3 times more volunteers than paid employees, but that has changed a lot with the professionalization of the organization. And Anya, can you maybe discuss volunteer situation now?
Yeah. Now because we have another activities and another project, so we a little bit paused with these activities which are in which our volunteers are participating. So currently it's maybe about like 6 to 10 volunteers, and part of them are newcomers, part of them are locals. So newcomers are also volunteering actually and organizing some events which we count is very, very useful for them. So now, yeah, it's like active 6 to 10. And what was that? Yeah, and also the question was about our foundation. So yeah, we usually fund these activities from different grants and from European Union or from some local grants. For Kulinarna, we used, for example, this European Solidarity Corps, for 1 year, and now there are another type of grants for it. So we try to have money for gaining food for this event, so we don't need to take it from the participants. And as I mentioned in the presentation, we are connected to this cafe, autonomous cafe shop and place, and to different stores. So we really try to gain some food from these facilities, because they have access to cheaper and organic and vegan products. So we used to buy something from them, but also sometimes we need to find some exotic stuff. So we just go to different type of shops in Brno and looking there for some these specific products. We have here like Turkish store and Ukrainian store and Vietnamese store. So there are also like options to buy something there. And vegetables we try to buy at vegetable market, which is in the center of Brno, and there are some local farmers selling their stuff. So this is our like ideal stuff, that we have these alternative sources of products, but sometimes we need to buy it very in a short way, or if some volunteer, for example, take this as their task, sometimes it's hard to help them, these people, to find some particular specific store. So then sometimes we just buy it in a shop. Yeah.
Sometimes they just do it together with their like family shopping and buy it in whatever supermarket, and then they're happy that they did the task. You know, they were active, and we're like, next time we would love it differently, but it's amazing. And when it comes to the space, we do have a kitchen and some shared spaces in our office. It is not huge. It is not the best maybe, but we use it as well. And in the beginning, we were using different spaces around the town. So the very first cooking was in a leisure time center that was in the center of Brno. Then we started a cooperation with a small restaurant who they just let us use their kitchen and their restaurant on the day when they were closed. And this was also thanks to someone from our colleagues knew someone from their colleagues in the very past, and they were like, yeah, here are the keys, use it. Now we are using our spaces, our office spaces, but I think we're looking for different options. Yeah, also.
Great, thank you. So last question from Monica, and then we move on.
Yes, thank you so much, Anya and Wendy. Your presentation was, wow, eye-opening. It's just amazing how many diverse things you do. And I was wondering about kind of the issue with like mental health and the experience of trauma and pain that communities of migrants and refugees have, and whether how you come along with like food as a healing process and those communal activities, and this topic of mental health as well that connects to it.
Thank you very much for this question. It's true, it's very important for those people, actually even more after the war in Ukraine starts, and we start work with those people who have this trauma, how we are dealing with it. Actually, besides our food events, we have other community events which are more, sometimes we try to have like more closed events and talk with people about their problems and their challenges. But in these food events, what we are trying to make this safe space for these participants, and maybe it's more about they forget about it actually when they start. For example, in some events, my family, because I'm from Ukraine originally, so my family were here last year for 6 months, and they were participating in Kulinarna, and actually for them it was something that they can arrange and they can do. Then can organize by themselves and focus on these practical and very concrete things, and so they don't think about the war, about other stuff, and it's just take their focus to another thing, and it was helpful just like this. Also, they have opportunity and space to speak about these challenges. Of course, not everyone want to use these, but sometimes for some extrovert people, it can be really helpful to talk about it in the full table after we cook together and have this some activity together, and then people feel like more connected to each other maybe, and they can feel more support, so they can open more, and sometimes it's happening. And I remember maybe one very great kulinarna with Julie, which was Iranian girl, and she brings some traditions and rituals to this cooking session. And it was very strong and very spiritual, which brings spiritual connection to all people who were participating in it, and the atmosphere really changed, and it was very interesting. So though we didn't so much speak about things, but the atmosphere changed a lot after she made their specific rituals, and she talked about it, how it was in her family when she was a child, and it had this very spiritual and nice atmosphere. So these are examples which I have in my head.
I would like to say this was a great webinar so far, and thank you so much for being here, and I'm looking forward to the next time.